When you add and subtract polynomials together, you need to remember that you can only combine terms that have the exact same variables with the exact same exponents. So when I add these two, this 6y squared is going to combine with this 3y squared because they have the same terms. So the easiest way to do this is to line these terms up in order. I'm going to start by looking at my first polynomial. I'm writing this polynomial in descending order. So I'm going to do that based on their powers of y. So my first, the highest power of y I have is 6y squared. And then I'm going to have my 2y. And finally, I'm going to have the minus 4. Then I'm going to look at my second polynomial. And it's important for me to line up the terms directly underneath. So in terms of y squared, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this y squared term and write it directly underneath, 3y squared. And because it has a plus sign in front, I'm going to put that plus sign down here. Then I'm going to look for my y terms to line up underneath there, and I see that I've got a minus 7y, and then the number, last but not least, 2, is going to go right here. And once I have everything lined up, I can just combine them together. So 6y squared plus 3y squared gives me 9y squared. 2y minus 7y gives me negative 5y. And negative 4 plus 2 gives me negative 2. Now, you got to remember when you're adding variables together, I'm going to write a really simple problem down here, so don't get confused that these don't match. Let's say I have 2x plus 3x. If I think about what this looks like, 2x looks like this, x plus x. And 3x, 1, 2, 3, looks like this. So when I combine these two terms together, what I'm going to get is 5x. My numbers add together, but nothing happens to my variables. Okay, you have to remember that you're not going to end up with 5x squared. That's what some people think. But remember, you can only get an x squared by multiplying an x times an x, not adding. So when you add together, your numbers add, but your variables don't. Okay, let's try another one here. Again, the easiest thing to do is going to be to put this in descending order so we can line stuff up. So I'm going to start with my 10y squared minus 8y minus 3. And then I'm going to look over to my second polynomial to line things up. So I've got my 2y squared, that's going to go right here underneath my 10y squared. And then I have a 9, which is a number all by itself, so that'll go here. But when I look at this second polynomial, I have no term that just has a plain old y. So since there's no y term there, what I'm going to put underneath my y term is a 0 because I don't have anything to combine with it in that second polynomial. And then let's combine it. 10y squared plus 2y squared gives me 12y squared. Negative 8y plus 0 is just negative 8y. And negative 3 plus 9 gives me 6. Now, subtraction is pretty much the same thing with just one added twist to it. So again, let's start off, let's get this into our descending order. So we'll start off, we have 9y to the 4th. Then we're going to have 3y to the 3rd. And then we'll have 7y squared. And finally, we're going to have a minus 4y. Now, when it goes to lining up this other polynomial underneath it, we need to remember when we go to line that other polynomial underneath it that we're subtracting everything in this second polynomial. This subtraction sign is going to distribute to everything that's inside this polynomial. Okay, so we're going to subtract each one of those terms. So when I go to line things up, I need to remember this. So when I write this 5y to the 4th underneath here, it's minus 5y to the 4th. Okay. And then my next term is minus negative 2y squared. So minus negative 2y squared. Remember, this minus and negative makes this a plus. So when I put that on my problem up here, I'm going to put plus 2y squared. And it's important to line that up directly underneath my y squareds. And then my last term that I have is minus negative 3y. So again, minus negative 3y is like we have a plus 3y. And there was no y cubed term, so I'm just going to put a 0 here because I'm not going to add anything in that category. So now let's combine them together. I have 9y to the fourth minus 5y to the fourth, which will give me 4y to the fourth. I have 3y cubed plus 0, so that's just 3y cubed. I have 7y squared plus 2y squared, which is 9y squared. And finally, I have negative 4y plus 3y, which is negative 1y. Or you could write this just as negative y. You know that 1, as a coefficient, isn't necessary.